the night smelled of smoke and fear. Paris was no longer the city of kings, it was a beast roaring for blood. In the shadow of the guillotine, the cries of liberty echoed like thunder, drowning out the sobs of a dying monarchy. Inside the stone walls of the temple prison, a child lay awake, listening. He was only 8 years old, yet he was born a prince, the son of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. The boy they called Louis Charles, heir to the throne of France, and the last hope of a broken crown. Outside, the revolution had devoured everything. The palace of Versailles stood silent, its mirrors reflecting only ghosts. His father, the king, had been led to the scaffold, the crowd screaming as the blade fell. His mother, the queen, waited her turn, whispering prayers that the people mistook for pride. And between them, forgotten by history for a moment too long, was the little boy who once played in golden gardens, now locked in darkness so deep that even the rats were his only company. He didn't understand the world's hatred. They told him his blood was poison, that his name was cursed. In the echoing silence of the temple tower, he would whisper to himself, "I am Louis Charles, son of France," over and over again, until his voice grew weaker than the wind sneaking through the cracks in the walls. The jailers came and went, some with pity, most with disgust. One of them, Simon the shoemaker, was ordered to re-educate the child, to turn a prince into a peasant, a believer into a blasphemer. Each day he forced the boy to drink, to curse his mother, to shout that he was the son of tyranny. Each day the boy refused, until he was beaten silent. Months passed. The boy's world shrank to the size of his cell. He marked the days by the slivers of light creeping through the bars. Sometimes he sang to himself, broken lullabies his mother once hummed in Versailles. Sometimes he pressed his tiny hands against the cold stone, feeling for warmth that never came. He was France's lost son, alive but already fading. And then one morning the city felt quieter than usual. The guards whispered in corners. The queen's trial had ended. From his cell the boy could not see the guillotine, but he could hear the drumroll, the crowd, and then silence. The silence that comes only when the blade finds its mark. He did not cry. He just lay down, his heart heavy with something no child should know, the loneliness of being the last of his kind. But history is rarely satisfied with tragedy alone. Where kings fall, legends rise. And somewhere beyond the prison walls, rumors began to spread. The people whispered that the prince had died, that he was sick, that he was gone. But others said something stranger. That one stormy night, a shadow slipped through the temple gate. That the boy was smuggled out, hidden beneath the bodies of the dead, replaced by another child who perished in his place. No one could prove it. No one could deny it. The revolutionaries swore the child had died of disease. Yet no doctor, no witness, no record could fully silence the echo of that rumor. The prince who vanished, the boy who never truly died. Years passed. France forgot its kings. The republic rose, fell, and rose again. But every so often, a man would appear, somewhere in Europe, in a tavern or a court, claiming to be the lost prince of France. They came with different names, different faces, but the same haunting story: I was the child of the temple. I am Louis XVII. Most were liars seeking fame. But one or two knew things no one else could have known. A scar here, a phrase there, details that chilled the hearts of those who listened. Could it be that the boy truly escaped? Could it be that the crown of France had survived in secret, hidden behind 1,000 false names? No one knew. Not then. Not for centuries. But the story of the boy, lonely, broken, trapped in darkness, refused to die. His ghost lingered in every royal hall, every revolutionary song, every whisper of betrayal that France carried through the ages. And somewhere, buried deep beneath the weight of time, was a truth waiting to be unearthed. Because when you erase a child from history, the world itself starts to remember him in strange and unsettling ways. They said he was buried in a nameless grave. They said the heart of the boy king was kept in secret, locked away by a doctor who could not bear to throw it out. A heart that would, one day centuries later, become the key to one of the greatest royal mysteries in all of Europe. The boy had lost his crown, his freedom, his family, but not his story. That even death could not take from him. And so begins the legend of the lost prince, the boy who never truly died. The years that followed were soaked in silence and deceit. The boy was gone, the monarchy shattered, and France moved on as if it had never birthed kings. Yet somewhere in the quiet corners of Europe, whispers persisted. They said a royal child had survived the storm, a seed of the Bourbons hidden among commoners. The revolution had killed his father, his mother, his aunt, but had it truly taken him? In taverns and drawing rooms, Diplomats and deserters spoke of secret letters, smuggled carriages, and the faint cry of a child being carried into the night. The temple prison's guards swore they buried the boy in 1795, but when historians searched years later, the grave was bare. A coffin, empty as the promises of a revolution. It was as if the child had vanished from history itself. Then came the pretenders. The first appeared in Germany, a man with sad blue eyes and trembling hands who called himself Karl Wilhelm Naundorf. He claimed he was Louis XVII, the rightful king of France. He told stories of secret tunnels beneath the temple, of a loyal guard who spirited him away while a dying orphan took his place. He remembered names, objects, details no one could have known: Marie Antoinette's perfume, the lullabies she sang, the way she hid tears behind her fan during the last royal banquet. For a moment even the surviving royalists froze. Could this broken man be their lost king? But France had changed. It was no longer a nation of kings, it was a machine of doubt. The courts dragged Naundorf through trials, demanded proof, and mocked his claims. Yet even as he died in exile, he signed his last letter with a trembling hand: Louis Charles, King of France. When his coffin was sealed, they inscribed the same upon it. The man died a believer in his own bloodline. But he wasn't alone. Others followed. In Italy, in America, in distant corners of Russia, each claimed the same identity, each spoke with the same certainty. Some were obvious frauds. Others left historians uneasy. Their words carried a trace of truth, a strange echo of something real. It was as if the spirit of the child king had scattered into the world, inhabiting one life after another, refusing to rest until his story was told. And yet, something tangible did remain, a relic, a heartbeat frozen in time. When the temple prison was finally emptied, one doctor claimed to have taken a small, shriveled heart from the body of the child who died there. He could not bring himself to throw it away. He kept it hidden in jars of alcohol, passing it from generation to generation, as if it contained not just flesh but fate. That heart became a legend of its own. It survived revolutions, wars, and theft. It was stolen, lost, rediscovered, and finally placed inside a crystal urn in the royal crypt of St. Denis, the resting place of France's kings. For 2 centuries, no one knew if it truly belonged to the lost prince or to a nameless child who perished in his stead. The church bells rang over that relic like a question that refused to die. Then came the modern age, the scientists, the skeptics, the truth seekers. In the year 2000, a team of geneticists opened the urn and tested the heart's DNA. They compared it to strands from the hair of Marie Antoinette herself, preserved in royal collections across Europe. The results were stunning. The DNA matched. The heart was indeed that of her son, the boy who suffered, who sang to himself in the dark, who died before the crown could ever touch his head. The revelation should have ended the story. But somehow it didn't. Because the truth was far stranger than legend. The body of the boy had never been found. Only the heart. And those who believed in his escape whispered, if he had died in that tower, where was the rest of him? The bones buried in 1795 had been moved, lost, and replaced. The French government had no record of their true origin. It was as if history itself had hidden the evidence, leaving behind just enough mystery to keep the flame alive. A child's heart, a vanished body, and the memory of a crown that had turned to dust. Centuries later, in the vaults beneath Paris, historians still debate his fate. Was Louis Charles truly buried beneath the temple? Or had he lived on, a ghost in flesh, walking the earth under another name, his royal bloodline forgotten even to himself? Sometimes, in the dim corridors of the conciergerie, where his mother once awaited her death, visitors swear they hear faint whispers. The echo of a child humming a lullaby, the same one the Queen sang before the blade fell. The walls of Paris remember. The stones of Versailles remember. France remembers even when it pretends to forget. And in every candlelit museum, every photograph of that tiny heart encased in glass, people pause a little longer than they should. Because they feel something staring back from the other side of history. A boy who was meant to be a king robbed not only of his throne, but of his name, his truth, and his peace. The revolution gave France freedom, but it took something else. Something sacred, something innocent. It took a child who never got to live long enough to sin or to rule, and made him a symbol of everything the human heart can both destroy and preserve. In killing the crown, they birthed a ghost. A ghost that still lingers in the flicker of torches near the ruins of the temple, whispering, I am still here. I was never buried. The lost prince became more than a child. He became the embodiment of the cost of power, the cruelty of mobs, and the strange immortality of royal blood. And even now, centuries later, when France celebrates liberty and reason, somewhere deep beneath the soil of Paris lies a question that can never die. Was the prince truly lost, or is he still waiting for history to find him? Centuries may pass, but some stories never rest. The tale of the lost prince lingers in the veins of France like an unhealed wound. His name, Louis Charles, the boy king who never wore a crown, is carved not on marble or gold, but on the conscience of a nation that tried to forget him. His ghost does not haunt with chains or screams, but with silence. The kind of silence that echoes through empty palaces and lonely graves. After the DNA results, the scholars celebrated. They called it closure. The newspapers announced that the mystery was solved, that the child in the tower had truly died, and his heart now lay among his ancestors at St. Denis. But the air around that tomb feels heavier than peace. Some visitors swear the chapel grows cold when they stand before the urn. Others say they hear soft footsteps, the shuffle of small shoes on marble floors, as if the child still wanders among the dead, looking for a mother who never came back for him. Because perhaps, even if the body rests, the story does not. In the deep archives of France, sealed letters tell another tale. Letters from nobles who claimed they saw the boy alive years after his supposed death. Letters from spies who followed a carriage through the German forests, carrying a pale child with royal eyes. And one letter, whispered to have been written by the queen herself before her execution, saying only, "He will live in shadow until the crown is worthy again." No historian can prove it. But no historian can destroy it either. The lost prince has become a mirror reflecting everything France cannot face: the price of revolution, the fragility of innocence, and the haunting truth that freedom, once drenched in blood, can never be entirely pure. The world changed, empires rose and fell, but his legend remained, like a scar beneath the nation's smile. Writers called him the child of sorrow. Painters depicted him as a ghostly figure trapped between gold and darkness. Poets said he was the last echo of divine right, condemned to walk among men who no longer believed in kings. In the 19th century, when Napoleon ruled and later when monarchies were restored, many secretly prayed that the prince might somehow return, reborn, reappearing, or revealed. The lost heir who would redeem the crown. But he never came. The throne remained cold. And perhaps that was his final vengeance, forcing France to live with what it had done. In the modern age, his story survives not in coronations, but in candlelight vigils and whispered prayers. People visit the site of the temple tower, where now only a small garden stands. Children play where he once suffered. Lovers pass without knowing that beneath their feet lies the soil that drank the tears of a prince. The tower is gone, erased, but the ground remembers. Stones do not forget. Sometimes, late at night, a watchman or a tourist claims to see a flicker of light in the dark, a shadow moving where there should be none. A boy in tattered royal clothes, staring at the stars as if he is still waiting for his mother to sing him to sleep. They say he looks neither sad nor angry, just lost. Eternally lost. He has become part of the mythos of Europe, the same breath as the princes of the Tower in England, the Romanovs in Russia, the vanished heirs and doomed bloodlines that define the cruel poetry of royalty. But Louis Charles is different. Because he was not a man when history took him, he was a child. A child whose only crime was being born to rule in a time that hated rulers. And that, perhaps, is what makes his legend so powerful. Every revolution demands sacrifice. But this one demanded innocence. And that innocence still speaks. Every crown, every throne, every leader who dares to believe in destiny rather than mercy should look into the eyes of that child in the tower, and remember what happens when power becomes blind. In the royal crypt at St. Denis, under arches of cold stone and golden candles, the heart of the boy lies within crystal. It is small, no bigger than a fist, yet it has carried the weight of centuries. Around it rest the bones of his ancestors, the kings and queens who built France's glory and its guilt. Above, the air smells faintly of incense and old tears. It is quiet there. So quiet you can almost hear a heartbeat. Maybe in that silence the boy finally found peace. Or maybe, just maybe, he still listens, to footsteps, to whispers, to the world above that still speaks his name. Because stories like his don't end. They ripple. They haunt. They become reminders that history is not only written by the victors, it is also whispered by the dead. The lost prince of France may have died in a cell, or escaped into the world as a forgotten soul. No one will ever know for sure. But his story remains the same, a tale of love, cruelty, faith, and the kind of tragedy that time cannot erase. The boy who was meant to be king became something more, a symbol that innocence, once betrayed, can outlive empires. As the final candle flickers beside the glass urn, and the air turns still, You can almost hear his mother's voice, Marie Antoinette's final whisper to her child before she was taken away, "Do not cry, my son. The world forgets kings but not angels." And maybe she was right. Because centuries later we still speak of him. The boy without a throne. The king without a crown. The child who became a legend. The lost prince of France. The boy who never died.